man that needs no introduction among fans of exploitation. He is a god among men in the zombie apocalypse subgenre. He's easily most well known for his film Zombie, an unofficial sequel to George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, and the linked Gates of Hell movie series, which are comprised of City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and House by the Cemetery. The Gates of Hell trilogy is unique because it's not actually a trilogy at all. They're just movies that happen to share very similar storylines. All three revolve around a gate to hell being opened and spilling forth the living dead onto mankind. Stories like this are what set Fulci's zombie fare apart from Romero's works. Instead of a lot of speculation on why the dead are coming back to life, Fulci flat out makes it that hell is opening up and swallowing the earth.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
If you're the kind of fan that watches Zombie as a canon sequel to Dawn of the Dead, then Ken Foree is 100% correct. Fulci has made other movies too though, proving that he's a pretty versatile filmmaker. Apart from his usual horror fare, he made a fantasy film called Conquest. If you're in the mood for watching a Conan-style adventure fantasy film with a really sleazy exploitation atmosphere, you've just found your dream film.
Feel the power. Accept the challenge of Conquest.
He's also thrown his hat into the giallo ring with 1982's incredibly sleazy murder mystery flick, The New York Ripper. It's about a killer that taunts his victims and the police with a Donald Duck voice, targeting various beautiful women in New York City. We begin with an old man playing fetch with his dog by the Brooklyn Bridge, treating us to everyday New Yorker life as the dog finds a mangled severed hand in a bush. Pleasant! And remember, this is a Fulci flick, so expect it to get sleazier in 3, 2... Excellent. This is Lieutenant Fred. He's in charge of an investigation of a possible serial killer that's been targeting various beautiful women all around New York, the latest corpse found being that of a model. A gorgeous girl is riding her bike to catch the ferry going to Staten Island. On her way, she scuffs a man's car with her bike, and they get into a quick exchange of insults.
You've got the brains of a chicken.
And you're an asshole. Ciao.
She finds the same car on the ferry and writes an insult on the windshield. Someone catches her and she makes the excuse that the guy deserved it. She introduces herself to whoever it is that has caught her, but her lifespan isn't long enough for me to give you her name. This is our killer, someone that targets pretty girls and taunts them with a Donald Duck voice. The latest victim is examined. The killer is dispatching the women in a sexual nature, cutting them up through what the coroner describes as their joy trail. Traces of another blood group is found on the girl that could possibly link them to the killer. Lieutenant Fred and Chief Fulci briefly talk about the killings, and yes, that is Lucio himself playing the chief. He doesn't believe that the murders are targeted and that it's just coincidence, but Fred's going to stick to his guns and plans to visit a shrink to try to get a possible psychological profile on the killer. The guy playing chess with himself is Dr. Davis. Fred is going to give Dr. Davis all the information he has on the killings so far, so they can wait for the killer to strike again to continue hunting for clues. Here are our first two suspects, Eric Estrada with 2 missing fingers, and some girl that goes to live sex shows to record herself diddling to the show. This flick certainly delivers in sleaze. After the show, our performance artist, played by Zora Karova of Boob Hook Cannibal Ferox fame, heads backstage only to find that someone has stolen the light bulb from her dressing room, and then an attempt at topping her Ferox death scene is made. Fuck to death with a broken bottle. I'll give this one 4.5 Giovanni Lamberto Radici castration faces. Fred gets a call in the middle of the night from the Donald Duck killer, who somehow knows that Fred is with a hooker, so he taunts him about it and about the latest murder. The public masturbator is the wife of this rich, sexually inept pud who gets off on her finger bang tapes. Dr. Davis has been studying the phone calls. He has gathered the killer has perfect self-control, at least in terms of concealing his or her identity, and that he's trying to provoke Fred. I may know who the killer is. And that the killer is neurotic, egotistical, and loves to be noticed.
10 million people in this city, that's a hell of a lot to go on, huh?
Rich bitch is at a pool hall checking out some serious man package. Jesus Christ! Is there a moose making a fist in there, or is he just happy to see us?
Hey, Morales.
Raul Morales is the strongest.
Unfortunately, it's not that Morales. But speaking of which, it has been quite some time since I've reviewed a George Eastman flick. I'll have to fix that soon. I really don't know what else to say about this other than, yes, indeed, there is a scene in this movie where a woman has sex with a man's toes. Eric Estrada rides on a subway and creeps a girl. He gives her the rape face, but the train makes a stop and she runs away. So far, Estrada has had the most development as a potential killer. He was at the scene of the last crime and is now chasing a girl. She gets attacked by an unseen assailant and runs into a movie theater, getting her throat slit by a man whom we haven't been introduced to yet. But wait, it's all a dream. This is Faye. The man who killed her in the dream is her boyfriend, Peter. Only the movie theater part of the dream is fiction at this point, as she is in the hospital due to an attempt made at her life. Davis and Fred haven't been able to get much out of Faye, other than that she was followed by a man missing 2 fingers, so Estrada is now indeed our prime suspect.
What was he like?
Oh, strange. Weird.
Kinda looked like the douche from Chips. Estrada hooks up with Rich Bitch and ties her to a bed for some kinky sex. Estrada calls someone up and Rich Bitch overhears that she's been supposedly packaged and ready to go.
And a paper? You go. That'll be $3.
Hey, now don't judge the man, I'm sure it's just for research. Kinky sex is finished, with Rich Bitch all scratched up. She overhears on the radio that the prime suspect is a man with 2 fingers missing on his right hand. Naturally, she tries to get the hell out of Dodge, but only makes it out of the room to be slaughtered by a resident loony. The sexually inadequate husband of Rich Bitch is interviewed. They listen to some of her tapes. The husband says that they had an open relationship based on mutual trust. Or in other words, he can't get it up, and she dug him for his money. Fred checks out Estrada's place. He's living with some woman that he's been stiffing rent money on. He has a lot of naked pictures of himself, tons of porno mags, drugs, and a smoking pipe shaped like a dick. I suppose he's an aspiring porn star or male model, but can't get work due to his missing fingers, so he slaughters really pretty girls? Well, that could be his motive if he is the killer. Peter takes Faye home from the hospital. Faye is a national something champion with her leg injured because of the attack. She's worried about getting back into shape, so Pete gives her a pep talk.
In this country, if you're not good at something, at anything, if you're not the best, the smartest, or the toughest, that's it. You're screwed. Nothing is real if you don't believe in who you are!
Dr. Davis stops by to further interview Faye now that she's home. Davis is having second thoughts on whether or not Estrada really is the killer. Peter leaves to run some errands and leaves Faye at the house. As soon as he shuts the door, really foreboding music plays that seems to insinuate that Faye might be the killer. Maybe they're trying to hint that it's Peter, but with her expression changing and that sting, I expect to see this pop up. Davis thinks that Faye is holding out on all the information regarding her attack. Davis sees Estrada as just an average gigolo sleazebag, not capable of such cerebral taunt tactics, like the way the killer can change his voice. I'm starting to doubt this guy's qualifications as a criminal psychologist. I mean, I know some stupid as fuck people that are good at impressions. Hell, I can do a pretty solid Arnold, but it doesn't mean I'm a master of disguise and villainy. Faye struggles her way up to the upstairs of Peter's house. Meanwhile, someone is at the downstairs window. Faye finds a shrine to what's basically a little kid's room, and a man with 2 fingers on his hand breaks into the house.
Memorial Hospital.
Estrada attacks her, but runs away when Peter comes back home. The cops trace the whereabouts of the calls to a payphone on the docks, only to find the phone off the hook and next to a walkie-talkie. Donald Duck Killer slaughters the hooker that Fred was with that one scene, in a manner most of which I honestly can't show you, except for maybe the bit where he slices out her eye with a razor blade. Fred is of course too late to save the girl. Davis is playing chess with himself again, and talking to himself about how clever the killer supposedly is. I don't know if this is possibly meant as a red herring, or to show us that Davis might have social problems. Hey, remember all that time spent building up Estrada as the killer? Fred and the coroner examined Estrada's body, and it's revealed he's been dead for 8 days, which means he can't be the killer, as the hooker was just killed. Fred and Davis discuss other theories, how it might either be an insecure woman, or this is Peter's physically disabled dying daughter Susie, who has kept company with, you guessed it, a Donald Duck toy. Next to nothing is said about her other than the mention of something supposedly nasty that Faye said about her in the scene that introduces the two at the hospital. Faye begins to retrace her steps, and in roughly the final 5-10 minutes of the film, it's revealed that Peter is the killer.
You're like
all the rest of them young and beautiful and healthy. Well, I rock to death in bed in a lousy, stinking hospital.
He's been killing beautiful women of all walks of life because they exemplify something that his daughter could never grow into. Faye fit this bill, so he tried to kill her, but she survived. And when she did, he tried to pass the buck on Estrada. This is actually a really interesting motive, albeit its reveal is sort of poorly executed. Estrada is pretty much built up all throughout the flick as the definite killer until he's taken out off screen, and then we're introduced to Pete's daughter and the Donald Duck doll. The only real foreshadowing that Pete might be the killer is Faye's dream and the 2-second Susie name drop earlier. If anything, it actually seems more like Faye might have ended up the killer with scenes like this. As a murder mystery, it's kinda weak, but as a slasher, it's great. Real sleazy and real violent. It has that same kind of vibe that William Lustig's Maniac has, just very greasy and uncomfortable. It's a raw depiction of urban violence, and what it boils down to is, it's a Fulci flick. It's visually tasty, features gorgeous Italian women, graphic violence, and an always kickin' soundtrack. Could've used zombies though.